Gwebu, who's the South African Civil Aviation Authority's. Thank you very much for joining us on the line.
Thank you.
So I just wonder, did this come as a shock to you as it has to the public, that somebody could be flying planes for as many years as this pilot has without a license?
No, of course it did. It did come as a shock to us as well. It really brings into question whether the systems that the operator have in place are adequate enough to pick up incidences such as these ones. But yes, it did come as a shock to us.
Do you know how many years this man has been flying for SAA without a license?
We are in the process. We actually launched our own investigation because we're trying to really look at the details of this of this particular matter. What we have looked at so far is the records that we have, that we are in possession of, that relates to the license of the pilot. We have confirmed that the pilot has got a commercial pilot license and he meets basically all of the requirements in terms of that license. So what we didn't know, of course, is the fact that he has been producing fraudulent information to his employer, which is SAA, that claims that he actually holds the highest level of license that any pilot can hold, which is the airline transport pilot license.
All right, so in a situation like this, as a Civil Aviation Authority, who manages this process? So, for example, if somebody is driving without a license his car, there's authorities that check who issued that license, and if he hasn't been driving with a license, there is some kind of crime committed. Is it the same with airline pilots?
It's exactly the same in the sense that, so say for instance, in the process of the SAA conducting an inspection with SAA, in the sample, this name would have come out in the sample. Normally we would check the records of that particular person, but it clearly means that in the inspections that we've conducted on the operator, this person's name has never come up, because normally airlines would have a record, a training file for each of their staff members, especially the technical ones, like the pilots and the engineers. So that file would then contain all of the compliance documents that the pilot is supposed to be in possession of. Otherwise, if we didn't pick it up through that system, then it's something that we believe that the airline systems should have then picked up. So, for instance, let me give an example. If you have a commercial pilot license, it allows you to actually fly aircraft for scheduled airlines. But from one operator to the next, they would put certain standards that they would allow or disallow within that environment. And I understand that SAA has given permission for commercial pilot license holders to also participate in commercial flights. But normally they would not do that alone. So they first have to have a captain in that aircraft and the first officer. And in other cases, depending on the size of the aircraft, they would have more than just two pilots that are there. Those people are meant there to serve as a backup as well. And also in the SAA situation, and we're still studying their documents, it would seem that they had certain concessions that they had made in terms of which pilots are participating in the flight. But in the flight system itself, there's proper backups in place, in the sense that this person would never have flown, for instance, alone, an aircraft carrying more than 200 people, for argument's sake. So from that point of view, as a regulator, at least we know that our system is foolproof in terms of protecting passengers when they find themselves in situations such as this. But separate from what the airline can do, as the regulator, really the checks that we have, and this information is available for the operators to verify whenever there's a need to do so. We are in possession of every little type of training, assessment that the pilot would have had to undertake, because all of those are regulated and they have to comply with all of them before we issue them with a license.
So does that mean that SAA then may be culpable for not doing the proper checks thoroughly?
I'm hesitant right now to basically point fingers and also blame anyone, because our probe is still ongoing. And until such time that we have satisfied ourselves with the information that we have, we would obviously have to make a decision in terms of what it is that we find, whether we feel they've done everything that they could to prevent similar situations, and that just the person was maybe smarter than the system. I don't know. But I can't make those pronouncements at this point.
All right, and then perhaps finally, is there anything that you're going to do to improve the systems, perhaps things that might be able to assist to make quicker checks to prevent something like this happening in the future?
Look, at this point, SAA has informed us that they are sending all of their license holders to the SAA for verification, which I think is quite a prudent thing to do. But also, we take steps against then the pilot, and some of those punitive steps would mean that we will revoke their license. We may impose a financial penalty, and we also are going to refer the matter to the police for litigation. So it's, for further investigation. And but at this point, we want to be patient and rather do the process thoroughly before we take our next step.
All right. Has what the pilot done criminal? Can he go to jail?
Of course, again, that is part of the justice system, and steps would be taken commensurate with the type of offense that he has committed. But we don't have the authority, for instance, to charge a person criminally. We only are limited in terms of the enforcement actions that are encompassed in our Civil Aviation Act of 2009.
All right, so that's where we're going to leave it. Thank you very, very much indeed for giving us an update there. That's Phindiwe Gwebu from the Civil Aviation Authority telling us about this remarkable story of a pilot who didn't have the correct licenses to be flying planes for a number of years. In fact, I think it's been reported it could be as many as 20 years. But again, that is being investigated as we speak.